Welcome to another edition of What the Fuck Happenings from here in Mendham. Here in Mendham. This exact specific location. Okay. Enough of a whatever that is, intro kind of thing. Stay. Please. There, the new polite me. So anyway, so many stupid things to comment on. Oh man. So the feminism subject is just so, just amazing fucktards are released when you just say something simple like, uh, you know, I can see advantages and disadvantages. I see them. No, you don't have to see them, but I see them, and that changes my perspective. There. I mean, that's not really debatable in my opinion. And the fact that it is my approximation of the truth that yes, having a penis is a lot better in testicles than having ovaries and a uterus and a vagina. Just is. It's easier. Less complicated end of the story. Um, you know. There's no other way to see it, in my opinion. Um, you know, not complicated. But anyway, there's more to the subject of that, of course. But I mean, just so essential. And anyway, but the amazing, Piro said something. Piro leaves a comment saying something like, "Oh, it's not that good having a penis." Like it's like the penis is at fault. When no, we know your whole problem with validating, self-validation, and your ego troubles. They're not your penis's fault. Okay, they're your psychology's fault. The fact that you are lonely or you need somebody to love you and all this, that's all a bunch of psychobabble bullshit that doesn't really have to do anything to do with proper penis maintenance and fun. So it really doesn't have to be something you're dependent on. That part of the function doesn't have to. You don't have to drive your car into trees. You can just drive it on the road and it'll work fine. And so yeah, if you could know in hindsight, which you know now, okay, which you learn through experience, is that there's all kinds of ways to control your living experience and your dependencies. Now, Anaconda talks some of this, but he doesn't walk the walk in the sense that he's so owned by his drug. It's not, he's not getting liberated from needing the drug. He's just choosing what he's saying is the maximum drug, kind of a thing. Wallowing in addiction, essentially. So instead of controlling or manipulating to liberate, he's confining down roads he really loves to travel. Something like that. It's a, paraphrase. But anyway, there's so much stuff here to talk about. But the general subject is still going to just always come down to. All right. Well, anyway, so you have Hathaway on determinism and this idiotic Puro mush. I mean, his philosophy is just fucking mush. I should play this video, but it's just, why bother? Because he just contradicts himself with every sentence. Well, clocks could have a personal experience. Well, no, I don't believe that clocks have a personal experience, but maybe they could, and that kind of crap. I mean, who has time for this wishy-washy mush? Maybe, possibly, seems kind of like maybe, well, you sort of, yeah, maybe, but not really, well, of course, yeah, it's just bullshit. I mean, just, nothing condensed, nothing solid, just all this fucking vacuous, vaporous, I can mold this bullshit into anything. And that's all it is. His philosophy is just, I can mold it into anything with bullshit rhetoric. I'll just change the meaning of words. he still, I mean, even though you said this, I've said this stuff over and over, you know, he still says, he makes this distinction between living things, quote unquote, and non-living things, and he thinks all the living things are doing this experiencing thing. And he just takes no account for biological facts. Just none. We have 100 billion neurons, and apparently we have them for no efficiency whatsoever, because we could just do it with microtubules. You know, we could, you know, one paramecium is doing what we're doing, so why don't we just put 6 or 7 paramecium brains in our skull, and then we could reduce the size of our brain by 1,000,000%. Yeah. It seems huge efficiencies could be gained by quit fucking with all these expensive neurons, and let's just go with the microtubules instead. Like I said, it's just so fucking a denial of just volumes and volumes and volumes of facts regarding where our consciousness is. And it's in your brain. It's in a brain with neurons. No evidence that anything feeling is happening in a paramecium. It's not getting thirsty, it's not getting hungry, it's not getting scared, it's not doing any of that shit. It's just bullshit. And again, like I said, I've pointed out that comparing single-celled organisms to multicellular organisms is like saying brick equals Empire State Building, or block of aluminum equal, or tin can, aluminum can, equals airplane. It's just stupid. We're made of living things. We're not in any way similar to the shit we're made out of. There's just absolutely, there's no comparison at all. We're made of bricks. We're made of living things. We're made of little living cells. We're not a living organism in the same sense at all. We're a completely different structural organism, a wholly different platform, fundamentally different. We have arteries with cells running through them. We have different cells doing different organal functions. We have nothing in common with a paramecium. All right, anyway. Except we have behavior, of course. But our behavior's a zillion times more complex. Yeah. Anyway, sorry, I don't even know what subject to deal with here. There's so much stupidity, and it's just every single person. So anyway, yeah, on the feminist subject, you know, there's this guy called Alexander the Great or something, whatever he calls it. And he seems, you know, on some subjects he seems like a very intelligent person, but feminism, no, can't figure that one out. And no, I mean really stupid. I mean just truther kind of stupid rhetoric. You know, and then the nuts with the circumcision come out again, and you know it's a plot of women, you know, to cut their penises off, and I mean they're just insane loonies. So anyway, it's just so discouraging. So anyway, in this context, there was some guy who PM'd me with a offer of $100, you know, which is nice. If like he would contribute $100 if me and Professor Anton could do a conversation again. And you know, I wanted to reply to him. I should have. Yeah, we'll just see if you can, you know, make the offer to Professor Anton. I mean, I'll do it for free, but you know, if we have to pay somebody to show up, maybe that's what you have to do. So I was thinking about it. It might not be a bad idea. If I was to figure out some structure for that, to have people make a pledge, so to speak, you know, of I maybe force them to actually. Yeah, I just don't know where I want. You know, I don't want to know if I want to do a bunch of money handling, but you know, we just pay people to suffer me. You know, let's just see how much we have to pay somebody to suffer Gary. You know, to suffer the interrogation in a Gary conversation, so to speak. And you know, it might be interesting. Might be able to bribe the amazing atheist, so it might be worth the trouble. um, get somebody interesting on the hook, so to speak. Not that Professor Anton conversation wouldn't be interesting. Like I said, I found him an engaging fellow, and thoughtful and intelligent. But it's these fundamental things. I've been through this connect the dot thing. I think that's as good a metaphor as you can make. I mean, there's certain facts. I'm just going to keep this piece of paper in front of me, and there's really not that many dots. Evolution creates mechanisms for behavior. The one it fell on is this idea of consciousness, and what it's doing is it's creating sensations as a reaction to the world, and then the thinking brain, instead of having to fix the world, it fixed the feelings. So if it makes the person feel better, it has to make them feel better by changing the world, you see. So if something smells bad, the thinking thing has to figure out, how do I stop the smell? I can't stop me smelling the badness if the badness is in the air, so my brain has to figure out how to stop the smell. And it's not that complicated. There's no hard problem here, right? Piro's got this hard problem bullshit. Willpower, that there is an ego is the hard problem. It's not a hard problem. It's perfectly reasonable for your brain to come up with a mechanism to create impressions, value impressions, and then give you incentive to fix it. And it clearly has to be a value incentive, as I've pointed out in direct statements out of my mouth, and they don't even acknowledge I said this stuff. They don't respond to anything. But I directly said it. The reason why we have this consciousness and these feelings are so fundamental is because that's the only way it could work. If you didn't make it unavoidable, unrewritable, unfuck-upable, the brain would fuck it, right? If you created a machine and said, you're smart, you can figure out how to build a bridge. I use this analogy. You can figure out how to build a bridge. And if you gave it the agenda to build a bridge, but you didn't give him a reason to do it, the reason is because we say so. Well, if the machine would be smart enough to figure out how to make a bridge, it will figure out how to say, that's not a good enough reason. You got to stick something up my ass or do something, because I ain't going to build bridges for no fucking good reason because you want it. That's not a good enough reason. So the machine would unwrite the software. The machine would know, being intelligent, that it shouldn't do things for no good reason. So it's going to find the good reason. And if it doesn't exist, it's going to say, fuck you, I'm going home. And that's why we're not robots. Because smart robots would figure out, I'm a robot, fuck this, I'm not doing it. See, even if we figure out we're robots, it doesn't change it. It doesn't change the fact that getting cancer sucks. It doesn't change the fact that, all this shit, you can't overeat, you can't do this, you can't. It doesn't change the fact that you're a sensitive organism that's going to be motivated by your feelings. So you can't rewrite the software. You can't undo the program. It owns you. Alright, it owns you in the sense of, it doesn't own your intellectual space. It owns your living narrative. So you have to make your intellectual space compatible with your living narrative. Alright, so that's all you got here, though. All you have is all these overall experiences. And it's just an efficiency equation. You're just saying, is there some good, is it worth making the bridge? We'll kill 7 million of this, and 500 of that, and 6 of this, and 20 of that, and we'll torture this, and blah, blah, blah. Is there something we're going to accomplish that's worth the pain you're going to invest in making the bridge? And that's what the whole question of life is. For every one of us breathing every day, for an average lifespan of a human being, you're probably talking about billions of tortured organisms. Now, if you had to actually interact with them every day, like every day you got to meet all the animals that had to die for your existence, in the sense that they create your biosphere that you're surviving on, and say there's a million of them, but let's just say there was 20, okay? Little Joey hamster, little Jimmy gerbil, Fred the rat, Jane the tree sloth. Yeah, I made a woman a tree sloth. Sally the elephant, I mean, whatever. You just go through the list, and you had to personally walk up to them and say, yeah, I'm going to have you eaten by lions now. How's that? Isn't that going to be fun? Yeah, because I am worth it. Trust me. Yeah, this would be a different game if you had to actually, if you actually had to personally impose the price. But, I won't get any rational response to that fucking truth, that glaring fucking truth, that our lives are insanely expensive and there's not much we're doing for that price. We're a shitty product, a shitty vending machine. Literally. Make more shit than anything else. Alright. So all this conversation is just useless. And, Piro's always been an example of that. So I pointed that out years ago. We did some debating on different subjects, and, you go through the whole process, and everything he concedes, he just unconcedes. So there's no consistency. It's just useless. And he won't do it to the end. He'll just keep changing the subject. And that's what you found in the past. Just useless. Now, Holiday has the pretense that I'm going to be logical. I'm Mr. Logical. I'm just doing rational thinking. But he is oblivious to, things that are just obvious facts. Obvious fact, I'm fundamentally the same machine as my next door neighbor. We're almost identical Coke machines. If we were actual Coke machines, there would be nothing inside, nothing about the basic function that you'd sit there and say, oh, they're completely different machines. They're completely almost the same in terms of what they're participating in. Yes, the stories are different, but the idea that they're all fairy tales. They're all running a story, a narrative. And it's only irrelevant details that are substantially different. That's just a glaring fact. Just no way to evade it. And the fact that what I know from personal experience, from being conscious, what I know is that the bad sensations are bad. You just can't make them good. They just suck. Horrible pain. If you had sciatica or something, if you had something, there's no way to make it, hey, that's fun. No, it's never fun. It's never good. Never nothing but bad. Bad, bad, bad. And there's pleasant comfort sensations. Now, I would obviously argue again that most of the comfort is by extracting some kind of discomfort. But regardless, the point is the difference between those two things is cavernlessly different. And the words good and bad are very appropriately applied to these things. One's plus, one's negative. One's asset, one's deficit. Now, how can somebody claim to be logical and they reject those as obvious axioms? Just obvious truths of existence. We have experiences. The experiences are value latent, just weighted in value, heavily weighted in value. If you have ALS, you're heavily weighted in unpleasant experiences. If you don't, if you're rich and have a charmed life, then you might be heavily weighted in enriching and rewarding gratifications. But we're all climbing some hill. Even the greatest athletes, they keep fighting for more trophies and more glory because they want to be the best, and they're perfectionists or something. So they're still fighting, even though they're supposed to be winners. They're still grinding for it. And you see when the game's over, they just go kind of psychotic and alcoholic. But anyway, that's a whole different kind of subject, the whole psychology thing. I'm really not talking about the psychology of living. I'm talking about the truth of what our existence is. which is the fundamental part of it, is the sensations we feel. That's what your life is made out of, is sensations you feel. Now, the thoughts are, I think, incredibly valuable in terms of logic and connecting dots, but it's just obvious nobody wants to do that. Nobody can do this consistently. Nobody can do this with any kind of honesty, or even, because it's, Pirro's rhetoric is grotesquely dishonest. And for Hathloday to sit there again to premise an argument and miss the most obvious, the most profound, the most important truth of our existence in this universe, which is sensations are fundamentally different than planets. Things that are experiencing sensations is where, if there was a place to find meaning, this is the place you're going to find it, is in things having sensate, good and bad sensations. All the value starts there and ends there, appropriately. Once they're done doing the sensation thing, then the universe is free of the burden of having to be efficient, because there's no gasoline, no bad being consumed, and no mission to be accomplished. But that argument too has been gone over and over in the form of my zero-sum argument, in the form of Benatar's asymmetry, and these haven't been refuted with anything called logic, or any statement that starts with rational axioms, because their axioms are, I have purpose and value outside of. No, you don't really. All we are is our efficiency. So it's an argument that Hathloday can't understand, that the real value of your life is going to be how you affect all the soda machines, all the machines producing these value experiences. And that's going to be the measure of what your existence is. Did you leave them better off or worse off for your interaction here? And there really won't be anything else at stake. The minor importance of your one consciousness is tiny compared to the hugeness of all the other current machines plus their prodigy, which you can affect. So anyway, so in this whole argument, he has this feudalistic thing comes up too. It's so idiotic to confuse determinism with fatalism or feudalism, because it's all inevitable, and it's all we're just running the tape, so to speak, as the modern mystic put it in the past, the CD or whatever. We're just reading the file that's written by the chain of cause and effect. The chains point in a direction, and that's what's going to happen. But the truth is that in that process is the reality that we have to be participants in it. We're part of the chain of cause and effect, and what we do will decide what happens, in the sense that if we are intelligent, there'll be an intelligent resolution. If we're foolish, there'll be a foolish resolution, and those are consequentially different. So if our ambition is to make sure that we do the right thing, the most intelligent thing, the most efficient thing, if that's our ambition, well, that gives us an advantage, because you usually don't back into the right answer. You usually have to plan to get through that door. The door doesn't just pop open. You have to turn the knob and do a few things. You have to unlock the door and turn the knob. There's a few tricks to getting through the right answer door. And you can just make easy metaphors to this with, there was nothing, the World War II couldn't be won if everybody said, it's all inevitable, it's going to happen, I don't have to go. everybody said that, obviously the outcome would be very different. So clearly, people must understand their role, and they must have some ambition to make their contribution in a positive way. And that's obviously what millions of people, millions of men, and women stood up and said, I'm going to make my contribution. And they had to have a passion about that. And they couldn't sit around doubting the importance of it, the meaning of it, the fact that it matters that Hitler not win. And it would be silly for them to think it didn't matter, because of course we can understand that the world wouldn't be a better place if we let crazy bigots run the world. Oh, I guess that's what people voted for, so they keep voting for it. So anyway, so yeah, but Holiday just ignores all these arguments. Just doesn't. He won't go anywhere near them. You point out to him quite obviously that I have a subjective fondness, let's say, for the. Well, I only have a red thing, so I just say if I like the color red. Well, that's a subjective thing, whether it's red. But the fact that I like is not a subjective fact. The fact that I like. Somebody else might like green or blue or purple. And the fact that they like is what's being argued. The argument is feelings have value. Now, what we place our value feelings on, what we feel good about or what we feel bad about, that can be bullshit. That can be irrational. That can be nonsensical. People can waste money on sports or something because they enjoy it. Well, that's stupid. They ought to find something better to enjoy. So, I mean, you can find the inefficiencies in our subjective taste, but the fact that we taste, the fact that we have the good and the bad sensations is not a subjective truth. It's not a subjective opinion. It's an absolute fucking hardest goddamn fact you can get. I don't see how any rational person could argue that they don't fully understand how important it is they're not tortured. Yeah. Well, anyway, I've said and this obnoxious fuck will, claim he's up here in the logic clouds looking down at all the people who can't do logic. And you're saying you can't see the most obvious fucking facts. And his critique is that in arguing that this stuff is just it's really about garbage in, garbage out. And and brains basically work by avoiding garbage. So if you don't feed your brain garbage, your brain can do pretty good logic and reasoning. And that what ruins most people is they're raised by religious kooks. Their brain's full of kook, full of crap, and it's the garbage that's just distracting them, blinding them from seeing the truth, the bullshit. And so if you explain that maybe I had an advantage in life because I never got indoctrinated, I was never a player, and so my interaction with life was more honest because I wasn't propaganda had no meaning. I was a show me kind of person as a kid, and because they said so didn't mean anything to me because they had no credit. I lost respect for anybody else's advice or explanations very early because the explanations were absolute bullshit. You could see the overt lies of the Santa Clauses and the Easter rabbits and all the other bullshit stories. You ask a sincere question, you get an actual rubbish answer. And so yeah, it gave me a huge advantage in a way. And so you just express that simple statement like this, and he says somehow that disqualifies your philosophy because that's too simplistic. It's too simplistic to explain, well look, reality isn't all that complicated, and if you can avoid stepping in bullshit traps, this connect the dot picture is fucking simple. And I might argue this even applies to the physics argument, that physics has done the same thing as the wacky humans do with their little personal lives and their little silly narratives and their little silly soap operas. And it's got itself caught up in a whole bunch of silly memes, silly nonsensical functions and purposes, it's lost sight of all reality, the simplicity of the mechanism, by creating all its little magical Huygenses and Heisenbergses and dark energy and dark matter and blah 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 blah. Yeah, bent space, dimensional time, woo 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 woo, warp 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 warp. See, they like that kind of crap. Just as religion is apparently a more comforting story for people. See, that's another one of the things where you just say, I couldn't understand how anybody found anything about religion comforting. The institution was obnoxious. They force you to dress. They force you to do this. They force you to do that. You can't do this. You can't. I mean, the rules are all over the place. You're just saying, why the fuck would I want this to be true? I mean, there was just nothing appealing about this narrative at all. This undefined heaven where they're going to be peeping on me if I wank or something. I'm not even going to have the privacy to wank. It didn't seem to mean much to me as something I would want to be true, and that I would work hard to try to make true, even though all the evidence points to the opposite being true. And so like I said, it was easy. I didn't have to try, not to be an idiot. And so so we're just sitting here, and all of us are sitting here in this playing the same game. We're all Coke machines. We're all basically do this input-output thing. We take in some money and we give our contribution to the world, the Coke, our personal sensations and what we satisfy in others, and the substance of that's our interaction in this life thing we're living. But here we are, and so much of this we can't agree on any of these. There might be 15 dots, and we can't agree on where they are. So obviously we can't agree on how to connect them. Can't agree on them existing and what they mean. And some of them to me are just, the door's already closed. I mean, we obviously evolved. Religions are bullshit. You can't even pretend to create a reason to put, Alice in Wonderland, Snow White, Seven Dwarfs. You can't even come up with any reason whatsoever to even pencil them in. It's over. It's done. And this is the evolution that Hofladay, again, also rejects. That fundamental to our determinism is the fact that we are an evolving machine. We're not Rube Goldberg. We're a machine in the process of refinement, constantly being refined, educated. The knowledge base gets more elaborate and comprehensive. The arguments are made more specifically and more delicately and more perfectly over time. Clearly not a static machine, but a machine heading in a direction. And that direction is the truth. That direction is the acquisition of evidence for the dots and where they should be placed. So anyway, so this gets back to, Piro made a video called Structured Conversation, a Sustainable Platform for Social blah blah blah. And it was mostly on the subject of the video site thing. And again, it's almost ironic in the face of this dysfunction. Here we have a platform, we can make videos, and the problem isn't that we don't have a place to dump videos. I don't think that's a problem. And I almost think that if people had any passion for it, I mean, you can do it without, you don't have to have the simplicity of YouTube in a sense where, you throw any file in and, it converts it and does all that stuff. You could just say, look, there's two kinds of file formats that work on the internet, okay, MP4 and WebM. And so make your video into those two formats, and then you can FTP it onto the server, and the software can make a page for it, and there, your video is live. So it can be very simple. But anyway, I mean, I've posted videos online, and they work fine. So that's doable. The problem is that what's the point? If, again, if there's no content and this rambly crap over and over again. I mean, this is, he did 19 minutes and, 26 minutes and, what's the other, 40 minutes on willpower, and it's just this ramble of saying nothing. First you have these idiots. I mean, even the free will subject. I almost feel bad to even say it over again. Because it's like, okay, so they just aren't going to pay any attention to the argument being made. The very idea of a free is ludicrous. Free from what? So what is this will free from? Free from the bindings of what? Compulsions? I have a desire, and my free will tell my desire not to be as strong, or my free will say, have a principle, you have an ideal, and so you don't want to, violate the ideal, or you don't want to go to prison, or, I mean, there's no free here at all. There's just competing interests inside of us. We have our idealism, our who do I want to be, in the sense of what do I want to be remembered as, or how do I want to be thought of, and then we have the, but yeah, I want to peak, and I want to steal some booty, I want to fondle breasts, and whatever the thing is. So you want, and then you also want. And all this free will thing is about, oh yes, well, I'm going to freely will to want the right thing and not to do the bad thing. And I mean, it's just bullshit. Your will be dictated by who wins the competition. Your principles, your see, the funny thing is the word determined. If I said something like, that athlete is determined to win a gold medal, I'm not saying he's inevitably going to win a gold medal. I'm saying he's motivated. So the funny thing is the word determined can also be applied to somebody who's passionate. And that's really all we're really talking about, is how strong your passion is. How much do you give a shit about the truth? How much do you give a shit about honor? How much integrity? How much does that word really mean to you? And how much will you risk? And, what will you jeopardize? Will you jeopardize? Will you go to Las Vegas and, gamble your kids into slavery? Would you risk your kids getting put in slavery? Or your mother getting assassinated, on a gambling bet? It's going to be something about a free will that's going to take over and make the decision? No, you're either going to have character or you're not. Your principles are strong or your principles are weak. But there's no free anywhere. You're always dependent on how smart you are. You don't freely do anything. You don't freely paint. You don't freely lay bricks. You don't freely fix a car. You don't freely do anything. It all takes a process of acquiring anything called a skilled will, or a refined will, or an intelligent will. But there's no fucking free will. So anyway, so this is an argument that's already been made over and over and over again. The word free itself is a non sequitur. It doesn't it doesn't work. It doesn't make any sense as a word qualifying something, because the word free doesn't mean anything until you say free from what? Okay. But see, so I'm just saying, so what's the point of structured conversation when Pyrrho has no clue what those words mean? You can't have a structured conversation until you agree on a platform for a conversation. All right? And that's Pyrrho's out. He'll play that game. You'll get him to agree that, okay, parameciums don't have neurons, and that the predominance of the evidence indicates that neurons are necessary for experiential things to happen, for the illusion of a welfare state to be created in a mind. And he'll get him to concede that. And then later on, he'll just he'll just go right back and cross you on it. So there's no function, there's no structure to his conversation. It's completely unstructured conversation. Because the only way you can prove things is with a logical, disciplined proof. It's like a trial. You do it as a process. First you prove means to commit the act, and then you provide some evidence of motive to commit the crime, and then you start listing all the evidence that indicates the guy was there, and that he had opportunity, and that that there's evidence pointing that he was there, and nobody else was. He's the only guy in town with size 14 Bruno Mollies. And so you build the case. But you can't do it with these assholes, because no premises that matter can be established. None of these solid dots, these fundamental dots. Evolution controls our psychology. Evolution is the most important truth of our existence, is the fact that we are an evolved machine, and that the machine has these two primary functions. One, create a problem, feelings. Two, solve the problem, think about an efficient solution to my feeling problem. And that understanding that is just so fundamental to being able to have a structured conversation about how we perceive reality, and which ones of our perceptions are bullshit, and which ones are delusionary and wishful thinking, and layered in optimism bias and ego biases. Another thing that the Holiday thinks he's immune to or something, and he seems desperate. So I have attempted to do my part in the sense of establishing these putting some order into my arguments anyway, and but there is nothing responsive to that. And the only time you get something, you get some kind of quote mine where they just take some bit out of context, or they take some bit out of a different circumstance and say this is your argument, and it's not the argument. It's just a straw man. And so then you have to spend all this time arguing for the fact that the evidence you just presented is crap. So it's like they make a lot of claims in the trial, and they don't support any of them with real evidence, and you just have to spend a bunch of time saying, well, that never happened. I mean, they can say it, but you should obligate them to prove it. But the problem is the jury isn't going to do that. Jury's going to require you to prove them liars, and that's a real hassle. So, lament. So solutions, I don't know what they are. I find this, in the physics videos, I'm starting to feel it there too, where you go to the trouble to play a clip, and you do it in 3 different videos, and they'll still argue like you never did it, like you never showed the Yale professor saying it, Or they'll just say something like this stupid William guy, he says stuff like, well, that's just a junk lecture or something. No, it's a course. And it's after they've already taken a year or two of math before they even get to this course. So what are you talking about? It's not a junk. It's not a piece of crap. I mean, just an amazing, the crap that comes out of these people's mouths and that they get away with. In terms of maligning an argument that's solid and hard. And I mean, what else do I want to compare it to? But yeah, there's nothing on the real subject. There's just no. They're not arguing the existence of evolution and the existence. They're just not. They're just keep forcing you to prove Goldilocks doesn't exist. That every one of their fake dots is fake, and instead of you just having to defend the reality of your real dots, the validity of those dots. Something like that anyway. So, I guess that's enough of a rant on just the general difficulty of having conversation. The idea of bribing people into interviews. I mean, I think the interview videos are fun. I mean, they're always interesting to me. They're mostly. They go kind of, they have a flow to them. It's always sort of, I can't think of too many clunkers, let me put it that way, where I've had one-on-one conversations where we both go into it with some knowledge that we're going to have a conversation that's supposed to mean something. And so, yeah, so maybe I can bribe people into being guests. I'd still love to be able to, if I could really raise money, I'd love to raise enough money to get a real talking head science geek person to interrogate on how deep, they've how deeply they've considered the evidence of their fundamental axioms for the function of the universe. But anyway, these are things for the future, considerations and things to, who knows, just see how it goes. Lots of, I am really, lots of stuff going on. Yeah. I mean, both in this real inmendham world and, in all my projects. So anyway, until the next time. And thanks for watching. Oh yeah, well, I might as well bring it up since I've sort of half talked about it. Some elements of the money subject. So Indifferent Skies said something about why don't you have a Patreon page? And first off, it's just because it's kind of offensive, I think. But I mean, just the inefficiency of that. I mean, to accept playing a game so stupidly, in the sense that this stupid Patreon thing, all it is another business to take a cut out of your money. So I'm supposed to assume you're so stupid that you can't figure out how much money to give me in a year. You need somebody to take it out of your bank account every month. And we need to pay some third party to take the money out of the account and move it into another account, right? Pay PayPal. So you're not only paying PayPal, but you're going to pay this other middleman, and so basically throw away 10% of the donation and give it to middlemen to do fundamentally nothing that you really shouldn't be able to do yourself, which is just write a yearly check, one big bulk amount. Well, I figured to give them this much over the year. Or to figure out that every few months maybe you'll donate a certain amount based on how your life is going or how well I make videos or something. But this whole idea of Patreon is just efficiency. Efficiency is one of the damn dots on my goddamn paper. And it's just so fucking obnoxiously, grotesquely inefficient that I should expect you to be so fucking stupid that you can't just hit a donate button? Come on! What the fuck? And so you're going to ask me why I don't do it? Well, I don't do it because it's not because I fundamentally say, okay, there's no reason for me not to do some sort of moreness with what I'm doing online, and money certainly helps. But yeah, I just don't like the crossover either. See, if I was, if I was more financially stable, then I would feel almost better about taking money for the mission, because then the two things wouldn't get mixed into each other. My survival versus, buying better hardware or something to make videos, or spending some money on somebody else providing graphics or something, or I don't know, whatever I would do with the money. But, I don't like the crossover. But it doesn't really matter in a sense, because yes, obviously I have to survive to be able to make videos. So, I can't do it from the homeless shelter. Not that I would go to one anyway. So, but yeah, Patreon. No. I just keep saying we got to do better than this. We shouldn't even need PayPal. I should be able to have an electronic bank account for free. I mean, the government should be able to establish that under my own Social Security number. I should be able to put the money right in there, and only me get it out. And it should all be free. There's nothing to it. It's a non-expense issue. Why are we paying this huge tax to these fucking corporations for something we should have for fucking free? And the fact that you people find it tolerable to be ruled by all these gross inefficiencies created by these fucking money whores. And then you ask me why I don't play? Why I don't like Google? I mean, why? Yeah, the answer is simple. Because they're just fucking overcharging fucking capitalist thieves, for fuck's sake. That's why. They're not charging what it costs. They're charging what it costs to make them yachts and mansions and shit. They're not trying to make an honest living. It's a fucking dishonest living. You ask me why. Well, that's why. Fuck. I ain't sleeping with that whore. I mean, that's really else. It's just saying, well, why don't you, yeah, no. Because she's too stupid. Yeah. Anyway. Reminds me of tricks. Christ. Waste. Yeah, waste is one of the dots. Anyway, till next time. And such.